Hello, good evening. Welcome to Hucknall in Nottingham. It's me, John O'Bullard, live with this week's hockey chat. Welcome along. Great to have your company as ever. And as ever, if you could share this out on social media, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, let's get as many people in here as possible. Would really appreciate if you could do that as well. I am monitoring Twitter, so if you have any questions to add or anything you want to put on Twitter with regards to the discussion, it's at John O'Bullard. And also, you've got the chat box as well. So you've got the chat box on here where you can type in any questions or anything to add to the discussion. It is always welcome. Good evening, Craig. Nice to have you along. Just before I start in earnest, a reminder that from a poll that I did at the weekend, that there will be an audio only version of this once I finished this evening. I'm recording it now on Audacity to put it out as a podcast, so you will be able to listen to this on a podcast. It should be on all podcast providers such as Apple, Spotify, Google, whichever you use, it should be on there. I'll pop the link out and pop the link in the description once this is done and once I've got it up. But that is thanks to Manchester Storm announcer Aidan Millen, who just basically said, do you think you should put it out as an audio so it'd be good for me to listen to on his walks? So it's all his fault. But when I asked about it at the weekend, a lot of other people said that it would be really good for them, so they can listen in their cars, listen on walks and that sort of thing without having to have YouTube open. That doesn't mean I want you to go. We want as many people in here as usual on the live chat to add to the discussion, because that is what makes it so good. And also when you send your questions in. So thank you to everyone who sent questions in for this week. A really good mix again. So plenty to talk about. Perhaps not as controversial as previous weeks, but some really, really good questions that I've had to think about. So we will crack right on and start with Martin Andrews, who has a very meaty question. And he asks, presuming that the title sponsorship between the Elite League and Premier Sports is a substantial amount, and the league chairman saying he wants to grow the sport, which I would love to know their plans to do so, I think the league should use that money to financially support 4 to 5 NIHL clubs to make the step to the Elite League. Money to help on infrastructure of a club's accommodation, cars, etc. Money towards players' salaries, money towards equipment costs. When you look at the numbers of fans some NIHL clubs draw in, week out, Leeds, for example, the Sheffield Steel Dogs last Friday night was close to sold out. They are attracting more fans than some of the Elite League clubs. If this was done at a time where the league was reducing its import level, I think it could be successful to growing the sport. Really interesting question. First of all, I don't know what the title sponsorship money is between the Elite League and Premier Sports, or what amount it is. And I'm not going to speculate because I genuinely don't have a clue. With regards to expansion and regards what you say, if 4 or 5 clubs come from the NIHL into the Elite League, where does that leave the NIHL? Because you're going to completely destabilize that league if half the clubs make the jump to the Elite League. Now, you could argue, is there a case for having an Elite League 1 and Elite League 2 with promotion and relegation between the two? That's something personally I'd like to see, but I think that could be a few years off, if ever happening at all, unfortunately. So there's always that to consider. I mean, Jamie says on the comments, Milton Keynes had 2009 on Saturday, which is a really good crowd. Really good crowd. And of course, Milton Keynes dropped from the Elite League 3 seasons ago. Would they be wanting to go back up? The other clubs you mentioned, Leeds, new club, only been going 2 seasons with the COVID break in between. Do they want to establish themselves more? I think they do, before they look at maybe coming to join the Elite League, if they're going to join the Elite League at all. I think they need to spend a bit longer attracting a fan base and keeping that fan base before they look at maybe jumping up. Um, you're right that some of them are attracting more fans than some of the other elite league clubs, but this is where I do disagree, Martin, with what you say about using the money. Should there be a substantial amount of sponsorship money to support certain clubs with, like you say, infrastructure, accommodation, salaries, etc.? Where does that leave the clubs that are already in the elite league? And I'm thinking more of the smaller rink clubs. You like five, you like Dundee, you like Manchester, as three examples. How would they feel if new clubs are coming into the league and they're being subsidised towards their costs when that didn't happen to them? I think you're looking that's looking quite unfair. Also, you have got the difference in imports as well. The National League is currently a 2 import league. The Elite League is currently a 14 import league. We don't know if there's any plans to reduce, but that is a big step up, huge step up with regards to National League club using mostly local or mostly British players to using mostly imports. I think that's a cost that may be a bit too much. And I think there'll be a lot of upfront costs with regards to that as well. It's a really interesting question, and it really made me think a lot about what you said, because there was a lot in it and a lot to digest and a lot to pick apart and look at. I just think there's too much disparity at the moment between the two leagues for it to even be considered. And like I say, we don't know what the amount of sponsorship money is that the Premier Sports are paying the Elite League. So I think, although you put together a very good case, I just don't think it's going to happen at this point. I think it's too big a step up for some clubs, to be perfectly honest. Let's look at the comments. Mark Rackham, I think consolidation is a bigger priority for the Elite League and the sport in general for at least a year. And next, if anything, the money should go into grassroots, in my opinion. Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that at all, Mark. Jamie Bartholomew again. Basingstoke and Peterborough, for example, need significant rink improvements to make them viable in any way. Basingstoke have got some real problems with their rink, which have been well publicised. So that's another really good point. Adam RP89 says, would be great to get at least 2 new teams in the EIHL. Yeah, it would, but I can't see it happening. Andy Tring is on. Good evening to you. Andy sends in a lot of questions, usually via DM, but doesn't get to watch live very often. So it's a pleasure to have your company, Andy. Welcome along. Moving on from Martin's question, and something that was released this morning. A lot of people will have seen there was a press release regarding attendances in the Elite League and how they are growing. And featured in that article was Sheffield, particularly, who have done excellently well with their attendances so far this season. An absolutely incredible increase in Sheffield, and fair play to them for the way that they market their club and the way that they're getting fans through the door. But other success stories in the Elite League as well. There was comments from Dundee, comments from Manchester, Cardiff as well. One notable exception was Nottingham, was not mentioned because crowds are going the other way in Nottingham, as I see too much for myself, which isn't a good thing. But generally, the situation is positive, and a lot more people are coming through the doors at Elite League clubs, which is great to see. Particularly the likes of Manchester, who I think have been averaging 1750 through the doors since Christmas, which is a good 400-500 up on where they normally are, which is fantastic to see. And Dundee, who have done a fantastic job of marketing their club and getting people through the doors. Cardiff as well, who are virtually sold out every game. So fantastic to see. A really good positive story released this morning, which is very good to see, and good to have some good news in the sport about crowds on the rise, which is fantastic. That moves on to Manchester. Andrea Pennington, who I assume is a Storm fan from the way that she words her question, says, "What are my thoughts on Manchester Storm this season now that I've commentated on a few of their games?" Um, I really like the way the Storm are set up, and I'm surprised that they're in the position that they are. I love going to the rink. I love commentating there. Not the greatest commentating position in the corner, but I just love the club, love the people who work there, love the buzz around the place as well. Love the atmosphere when a game's on. I think it's a great rink, a great club, great setup. So lots of people working really, really hard to make it a success, and it's great to see that their crowds are growing, and their hard work is starting to pay off, and it's really, really good to see. I really enjoy. Um, I really enjoy going there. I really enjoy commentating on this. So 5 games I've commentated on now. Unfortunately, Sunday's game against Dundee was the first time I've commentated on Storm, and they've lost. The previous 4 they'd all won. So it was a different feeling at the end of the game to what I'm normally used to. But for the club itself, really well run on a tight ship. Obviously, one of the lower budget clubs. Um, but I like the way that Ryan Finnerty gives British youth a chance. Prime example, Joe Hazeldine, who he took from Nottingham, is seeing a lot of ice time and has improved immeasurably since he was having very little ice in Nottingham. And he's just becoming a really, really good defenseman. So that's a great success story for them. Um, Up front, the likes of Adam Brady, who is the 4th highest point scorer in the Elite League, has absolutely done brilliantly. Another player who's come to the fore recently, Jared Van Wormer, who I really, really like the look of. Two real good quality forwards that the Storm have managed to get there. And then in defence, Lyndon Springer as well. I know he's very much criticised by fans of other teams, but he's a defenseman I really, really like. A big unit. Stands up for himself and his team, but is a very, very good defenseman, and a defenseman I rate very, very highly. I just like the way that their team is put together. Much better at home than away from home, but I think that is the way that Ryan Finnerty has built his team to be very hard to beat in that rink. Having said that, Dundee had a great game against them on Sunday night. Very close after 2 periods. It was 0-0 after the first, 2-2 after the second, but then Dundee Stars put the foot down in the 3rd period and really blew Storm away and finished with a 6-3 victory. Dundee, another side who's looked very good. For anyone who's been watching these all season, they'll know that I mentioned I thought Dundee could be a dark horse. It's not really turned out that way, but they have this ability where I think they could beat anyone on any given night. And when I was doing the prep for Sunday's commentary and looking through Dundee's last 10 games, it was interesting to see that they've beaten all of Belfast, Cardiff, and Sheffield within their last 10 games. So it shows that they have the ability to beat anyone on any given night. And I think Dundee can be a very dangerous team. But to go back to the Storm, really like everything that I'm seeing there. A good, entertaining team and a real buzz about the club. And it's starting to be rewarded now with larger attendances, which is really, really great to see. So, yes. And I've got a few more games to do for the rest of the season, which I'm very much looking forward to, including a couple of games against the Steelers and one against Belfast. So, yes, that should be something that I am very much looking forward to. Okay, let's go back to the comments as a few more have come in. Cameron McDonald, what do you think about Clan not allowing Reece Cochran to sign for another Elite League team and him going to the SNL and also him apparently signing up with Stars for next season? I've not heard that. I know that Reece Cochran had been released by the Clan or they'd come to some sort of agreement. I wasn't aware that they weren't allowing him to go to another Elite League team, which seems very short-sighted if that's the case. If he's already signed up with the Stars for next season, I think that will be a good move for him, to be perfectly honest. Um, but I think the Reece Cochrane's a too good a player for the SNL, and I think he needs to be playing at a higher level than that, quite frankly. Um, and if that is the case, that kind of not allowed him to sign for another league club, I'd want to know why, because that just doesn't seem to make sense as far as I'm concerned. Jamie, is there any general conclusions to why Nottingham crowds are struggling whilst everyone else is improving? Yep, the team's not that great. And a lot of people feel that the ownership are taking the mick. And a lot of people are voting with their feet. I think COVID has had an impact as well, where people have found other things to do over the time that we've been away from hockey. And I think that has had an impact in Nottingham, where it's probably not had as much an impact elsewhere. But I think generally, number one, the results, it's not been that entertaining up until probably the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I think that's a reason why the crowds are going the wrong way in Nottingham. Anthony Russell, Bar Rick Coning. Have you spelt that right, Anthony? I don't know. Bar their own history, Storm seem to be an interesting club, fighting from underneath a bit, but they seem to try. Yeah, a lot of effort goes into that club, a huge amount of effort by some very hardworking people, and it's great to see. And it's great to see it hopefully pay off. Next question comes from my good friend Chris Lovell in Belfast. And he's asking, should there be more transparency around what bans DOPs are giving? For example, an accessible list of minimum tariffs for headshots, majors, etc. Excuse me, just have a quick sip of water. Also include an extra game for each instance of repeat offender. Also, what happens to the fines? They should give the money specifically to supporting officials and making them better. Surely that would be a good use of the fine money for indiscipline. To answer your second part about the fines, I couldn't agree more. And as we did talk about the officials last week in great depth, so I'm not going to go over that again, but I think that's a great shout that any fine money should be going towards the officials, training them, making them better. I think that's a great shout. For transparency about what they're giving, an accessible list of minimum tariffs, I totally agree with that, and I think it's something that people have been calling for for a long time. So, for example, you could say the minimum tariff for a headshot, for example, is 3 games. Then each incident can be looked at and decide if it needs to be any more than 3 games. So, yeah, I think that is a great idea. And I also like the idea of an extra game for each instance of repeat offender. The only thing I think you need to just be wary of with that is if, say, someone gets a DOPS ban for fighting, for example, and then gets a DOPS ban for boarding next, would that be classed as a repeat offender because they're different offences? Or because it's the same player, would that be classed as a repeat offence? I think that's something that you probably need a little bit more clarity on. But I think everything that you put there, Chris, are just really, really good ideas and sensible suggestions that you would hope would be looked at. Especially like the bit about the fines going towards supporting officials. I think that's a great shout, a really, really good shout. But what do you think? I mean, what does everyone watching think? Do you think it'd be a good idea to have a minimum tariffs and then be looked at? Also, the idea of where the fine money goes. You know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Andrew Williamson, could it be down to both Nottingham football teams are doing well? Yeah, Could be, but Forest County and Forest and County have been running alongside Panthers pretty consistently for the past few years, and their crowds have been pretty consistent. Forest have improved because they are doing much better this season. And Notts are getting around 5,000 per game in the National League, which is a really, really, really good crowd. So, yeah, it's. I don't think it has much to do with that, but it may be a slight factor. I think it's more to do with the way the club are being run and the way that the club's results are going more than anything. Would be my sort of take on that, to be honest. Anthony Russell, EIHA have minimum tariffs, but they don't apply consistently, but they do have them. Craig Woolley, who runs DOPS, I believe Mike Hicks is in charge of DOPS, but I believe it's a panel that look at each incident. I believe. I'm not 100% on that, though. Jamie, thoughts on bans given to 3 Blackburn players staff for the incident with the Lions? As a member of the Lions media team, I can't comment on that publicly. So I won't be offering an opinion on that. So I can't really say any more than that, and I'll just leave that one there. Let's move on to the next. Who owns the Chiefs? Yeah, good. Go on, Anthony. Go on, Anthony. For those watching and those listening after the fact, Anthony does have the What's Current stream for Banners on the Wall every Wednesday at 8 p.m. You can pick that up on Twitter. Go to @BannersOTW on Twitter, and you can watch Anthony's stream, which covers everything in the NIHL. The National Leagues, NIHL 1 and 2. Well worth a watch every single week. So do join Anthony tomorrow for that. Let's move on to the next question. At Adam RP89, who I believe was in the chat earlier. I don't know whether he's still on. But he says, do you think the league will change the player limit next season? I really hope so. I really hope so, because I think this 19-man roster has not worked at all. Teams can't have 4 lines. I will go back to be honest, to a 22-man roster with a maximum of 20 skaters and 2 netminders. You don't have to use the maximum, but it's there should you need to. And I think that also gives the option of bringing in more British players to fill out the roster and get some valuable ice time. It is my take on it. I just don't think this 19-man roster limit has worked at all. And I think there's a lot of opposition to it. In fact, is there anyone who does agree with it? If you do drop a message. But I don't think it is something that is universally loved. I think most fans would like to see it go, sort of see the limit go up to at least 20 next season. Adam asks another question. With Panthers, do you think there will be a big change next season with leadership, Guy, in brackets, GM replacement, roster, compete level? Are we going to go back to being legitimate league contenders? Well, top 3. Or is it the new norm, a mid-table team? I think there'll be some changes. I wouldn't be surprised to see... I wouldn't be surprised if Guy Doucette wasn't around next season. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a dedicated general manager bought in. With regards roster and compete level, you say legitimate league contenders and then change it to world top 3, and that's really we haven't been legitimate league contenders many times. But we have competed for other trophies. This season, we are just not competing at all. So where you say, or is this the new norm, a mid-table team? I think if this is the new norm and it stays a mid-table team, then crowds are just going to diminish further. And I think another factor in that sometimes gets mentioned is the number of Sunday games. Now, some people like Sunday games and the early face-off, Personally, and I'm only talking for me here, I cannot stand Sunday 4 o'clock face-offs. I detest them with a passion. For me, in Nottingham, Saturday night is hockey night, or if you can't get Saturday night, Friday night. I do enjoy a Friday night game. But Sunday, no, not for me. I think with it being 4 o'clock, and I understand it's very family friendly, and I get that. But for me, a 4 o'clock face off is too early because you can't really do anything with the rest of the day, and then you can't do a lot afterwards. So, no, Sunday games for me, 4 o'clock face off, just don't like them. I don't mind Sunday games if the face off was a bit later. Again, that's me personally speaking. But no, I'm not a big fan of 4 o'clock Sunday face-offs. But to go back to your question, Adam, I think if crowds continue to diminish, and Neil Black has said in the past that the budget is set on what the attendance is or season ticket sales is, then I think if crowds continue as they are, then at the moment, I think the new norm is a mid-table team, which isn't great to see considering our location, considering the potential that is there. But yeah, I hope that Neil Black realises that he needs a competitive team to bring the crowds in, because if he doesn't, and we continue along this path, I think more people are going to be walking away, and less money is going to be available for the playing roster. But I guess we shall see in the summer what happens there. A couple of comments. Jamie says, it's ridiculous the amount of young talent that is in the National League that can easily play Elite League level if given the opportunities. That's very true, Jamie, but also you've got to factor in that there are a lot of players who have full-time jobs at National League level outside of hockey. Would they be able to give them up, or could they afford to give them up to take the opportunity in the Elite League should it be offered? I think that's a difficult balancing act that you're going to have with a lot of players. Anthony said 4 p.m. face-off means Jono is in the pub by 7 and it's too early, and he's then drunk by the time the pub quiz starts at 8:30. No, I do tend to go in the pub afterwards, but only for a couple. Sometimes I just drive and get the tram. But get a team of local lads. Well, there is a team of local lads. They're called the Nottingham Lions. Talking of the Nottingham Lions, if you are in the Nottingham area on Sunday, they're playing the Solway Sharks, who are top of NIHL 1 North. There's a big drive to try and get the rink full on Sunday, so a 300 sellout, because that is what the rink holds. If you can get down to the NIC on Sunday, it's a 5 o'clock face-off, £5 for adults. Under 16s go free with a full paying adult. If under 16s want to come along, it's only £1, and Panther season ticket holders get in for £3. So I think it's probably the cheapest admission fee at that level. So please do come along and get down to the NIC if you can. Jamie again, Ivan Antonov is the biggest example of a player with a good job who won't play to Elite League due to that. Yes, he's training to be a doctor, so totally understandable that he continues at Streatham. I think he goes up to the Bs a few times in the season. But Ivan Antonov is more than capable, I think, of holding down an Elite League spot. But if he's going to be a doctor, then he's... then that is going to be far greater pull on his time, and fair play to him as well. Right, so let's. He's a doctor of geology. Right. I thought he was a medical doctor, but you proved me wrong once again, Anthony. But yeah, he's obviously going to have a very, very good job outside of hockey. Andrew, Billingham Stars charge £12 free admission for NHS staff, and that's at the same level as the Lions. So it shows what a bargain a £5 ticket is. So, yes, get down to Nottingham if you can. Nick Walker, Panthers fan, says, do you think the Panthers are now starting to see the impact Dave Whistle is having on the style of play? To me, we seem to be actually finishing checks, being a little more physical, finally, and playing with a little more intensity. This, in turn, is getting the crowd more involved in the games. I wasn't there on Sunday against Belfast, but what was pleasing to see is although we lost on penalties and we conceded the equaliser with 0.4 seconds remaining, compared to our other games against Belfast this season, there was a vast improvement. And from speaking to people who were there, they said it was a massive, massive improvement on previous games against Belfast this season. I was at the game against the Storm last Wednesday. Really enjoyed it. Really good game. Intense. Great atmosphere, which I think was caused by them moving the Storm drummers in with the Panthers drummers, which I think caused a little bit of friction overall, but in turn it created a great atmosphere. So it was really good in the stands and a good game on the ice. And like you say, Nick, we do seem to be playing with a little more physicality and finishing checks. No more so than when Kevin Massey, having losing his stick, went off and finished his check against the boards. And we've seen far too little of that this season. And what we seem to be doing is Dave Whistle seems to have given the team a little bit more belief, and the results recently seem to be backing that up. I think 7 points we've taken out of the last 8 available, which is a really good return. Big game tomorrow in the Challenge Cup semi-final, a one-off in Belfast. That's going to be very, very difficult. But you never know in a one-off game. However, you've got to say that the Giants will be favourites for that, without any shadow of a doubt. But hopefully we can give them a bit more of a game than we have done prior to the performance on Sunday. So we shall see. Tom Adams asks, where does Edwin Hedberg rank amongst Panthers' worst mid-season pickups? Yeah, he's a bit of an enigma, is old Edwin Hedberg. When I've seen him, he carries the puck really well. He's fast. And he's got great hands. But he just looks totally devoid of any confidence in front of goal. And that's something. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's one of the worst mid-season pickups, because to watch him and realise where he's come from, he's played in the SHL, he's played in the Liga, and he's only 27. But I just don't. He's not really done anything. He's come into the team. He's playing on the top line. I don't think he's really a top line player. But even so, he just seems to be totally lacking of any confidence when it comes to getting into positions in front of the net. Like you say, carries the puck well, good speed, good hands. But, once he gets over that blue line, there just seems to be something that comes down in him. And it's not. I thought he might be what we need, and he has turned out to not be what we need at the minute, because I think he's had two assists in 11 games, which isn't, well, it's a pretty awful return, let's be honest. So I wonder if it's just a case of he's one of these players who just doesn't slot in. And it happens. You do get players who for whatever reason, just don't fit into the environment that they've been sent into. And the fact that he is, I think he's probably more of a third line, maybe second line sometimes player. He's certainly not a top line player from what I've seen of him. So yes, it's not great. It's not been a great return. Let's leave it at that. At Karen WJ on Twitter says Dave Whistle is constantly talking to the guys on the bench. Yeah, that's something I've heard of as well. That he's constantly up and down the bench talking to them, and that's good to see. Nice to see that there is communication on the bench to the players. Anthony says Steel Dog fans were saying that Valdix is like that. Then he scored the overtime winner in the cup semi-final. Yeah. I'm sure if Edwin Hedberg scored an overtime winner or the game-winning goal in the semi-final tomorrow, I think there'd be a lot of people forgiving him. Just a few more questions left. So if you've got any more, do pop them in the chat or pop them in Twitter at John O'Bullard. Next one comes from Greg Crooks. He says, Cardiff season ticket prices. How much? Good, it covers all games, but it seems expensive unless you want to get a few savings by buying extras, but at a discount. Jerseys, meet the players, puck sponsorship, etc. Are fans asking for that sort of stuff? I had a look. So Cardiff released their season ticket prices, which are based on 32 games for next season. So they have 3 tiers. They have gold, silver, and bronze, similar to Panthers. £588 for gold, £532 for silver, and £504 for bronze. They're for full price adult tickets. So that is a range per game if you work it out. So bronze works out at £15.75 per ticket, £16.62 for silver, £18.37 for bronze. I went back and had a look at what Panthers charged for season tickets for this season, bearing in mind that was only for 25 games. So gold was $4.15, silver $3.70, bronze $3.40. So you're looking at $13.60, $14.80, $16.60 as a per game ticket, which is far better value. But there are obviously factors involved here. Cardiff is a 3,100 capacity rink. Nottingham is a 7,000 capacity rink. So, that's something to consider. But, Cardiff is selling out every week. So, it's a simple case of supply and demand. With regards to the second part of your question about the sort of add-ons with jerseys, meet the players, I have no idea if fans are asking for that at all. But, if Cardiff are selling out, and I can't imagine the ticket prices for this season were much less than what they're charging for next season, then fair play to them. It's just the simple law of supply and demand, and bearing in mind that they are limited by the number of seats that they have in their building. So, they probably can ramp up the price a little bit because it's in greater demand and a limited supply as such. So I suppose that's why they've come up with the prices that they have. I think what they were saying, that it works out at least 4 games, 4 games extra that each season ticket holder gets compared to buying on a game-by-game basis. And I think they was also saying that they will offer 2 free webcasts per season if you can't make a particular game, which I think is fair enough. Mark Rackham, which elite league coaches should be in running for coach of the season? Good question. Really good question. I don't know, because the teams at the top you would expect to be the top. Certainly Sheffield, certainly Belfast, certainly Cardiff. Probably look mid-table, see where the cups are going, but I don't know. I think if one team manages to win all 3, then that coach would be a shoo-in for coach of the season. But I like what's happening lower down. So I think Omar Pasha's doing a great job on a limited budget at Dundee. Same for Ryan Finity at the Storm. It's a tough one. I think when it gets down to it, it will probably be between Aaron Fox and Adam Keefe at Belfast. I would think when it comes down to that. Anthony, 16.60 is a discounted price. I know the Elite League is better than the NIHL, but not at that price point. For that money, I want one of them washing my car once a season. Yeah, you're not going to get that. And do Cardiff not have player sponsorship like the Panthers? I believe they do. Yes, I believe they do. Steph Litchfield, Panthers announcer, with a question. He says, would a 3-on-3 Olympic hockey tournament be a dumbing down of the sport a la 2020 or the 100 cricket? So I went back to Steph and I says, has this been proposed? And he sent me a link to a Hockey News article where it has been discussed at IHF level, where they're looking at having a 3-on-3 hockey tournament. I think in isolation, no. I think and what they were talking about is having that alongside the normal hockey tournament, which I absolutely agree with. I think that would be absolutely fine. Would it be a dumbing down? I think the idea is to get, and what it specifically said in this article was to get younger people away or to be interesting because it would only last an hour or so. So it may create that. And simply with cricket, the same thing has happened. I love 2020. I love going to a 2020 game at Notts. But for me, Test cricket is the pinnacle. I love Test cricket. I know it's not for everyone, but I love it. And if somebody said to me, as a cricket lover, you could only choose one format of cricket to watch for the rest of your life, mine would be Test cricket. But that's not the same for everyone. And the idea of the 2020 and subsequently the 100 is to attract new fans to the sport. And that is what it has done. Now we're looking that maybe it could be at the detriment of the test side. And that is another debate completely. But I think a 3-on-3 hockey tournament, yes, I think it could be done as long as it is alongside the regular tournament. I don't think it should be instead of or replace that, because then I think you're going down a tricky road. But yeah, why not? I don't see anything wrong with bringing it in if it's going to attract new fans to the sport. What does Anthony say? 10 minutes of 3-on-3 in the Olympics for OT was weird, was arguably too long. The players were all knackered by the 6-7 minute mark. Yeah. But I still think, I think 5 minutes of 3-on-3 is enough. But it'd be interesting to see how a 3-on-3 tournament will work. Because the only time I've seen it really before is in the All-Star game in the NHL, where I think they have a 20-minute period, but it's like 3 lines, isn't it, of 3-on-3? So, but we will see. We will see what happens with that. That's something definitely to keep an eye on. Adam again. Omar is good, especially when he was flirting with that news lady. Yeah, Kay Burley. Yeah, check that out. Actually, it's a really good report from how Dundee coped with COVID. It was very, very good. Castle Eden Cup had running clock. Now we are going back a few years. I played rec games where it was running clock before we was running out of ice time, so that the last period had to go to running clock. Okay, final question. And it comes from Chris P, which is at Chansu92 on Twitter. Also related to the Olympics. He says, in the Olympics, at one of the women's games, one of the officials was caught in the face with a high stick and had to leave the ice for treatment. There was no call. Should a penalty have been called, the penalty player was not in control of their stick, and just because it wasn't an opposition player was not deemed an infraction. Really good point. And I checked the rule book. So for everyone who talks about it, the rule book is free download on IHF.com. I suggest everybody does it because it's a really good thing to have if you're not sure of rules. So I went there today, checked it out, and the rule for high sticking does only refer to opposition players. It doesn't refer to anybody else on the ice. So if an official got hit, and you're right, they're not in control of their stick, but there is nothing in the rule book that specifically says about hitting an official accidentally. Therefore, there wasn't a call. So from a rulebook point of view, it was absolutely the correct call. Morally, what can we say? It'd be interesting to see if something is looked at and an amendment is made. just had a direct message come in. From David Stevenson. It's one I missed from last week. I do apologise, David. So what he says is, seeing Leeds United tie down Sam Gospel and a few other Brits to multi-year deals seems great business, and they seem committed to playing and developing Brits. All for a club doing business early, but from a player's perspective, are they maybe committing to a club too early and ruining potential chances to join an elite league club? That depends on the player's circumstances. And I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the National League, a lot of those, the players that play at that level have got full-time jobs. So they're probably playing hockey as a side line to their full-time careers. So they may have careers. Therefore, they may not be looking to actually get a place on a roster for an elite league team. So that may be the case. From Leeds' point of view, I think they're looking to get their best players tied up early, which is absolutely fair enough. They want to be competitive at that level. So I can totally understand that. I suppose if a player was looking for, or seriously looking for an elite league berth, they would hold off signing until they knew that wasn't a possibility. So I guess that the players must be happy to sign those deals. Otherwise, they wouldn't sign them. So yes, you're probably right in that they are ruining potential chances to join the elite league club. But do they want to join an elite league club, especially if they've got a full-time career away from hockey? I think that's something else to consider. Any thoughts on the GB under-16 squad just announced? Mark says, I've not had a chance to have a good look at it. So maybe something for next week, that one. I've seen it. It was announced. I've just quickly glanced at it. I have not looked at it in any depth or detail yet. So that's probably something for next week's chat. Andrew Williamson says there was an accidental cross-check in the men's game, but the player did help the official from crashing into the board. There was also one in the USPHL, but I don't think it was accidental, and the player got a lifetime ban. If you've seen that one on social media, it's do check that out. It's not good. Okay, all questions have got through now. Thank you, David, for DMing me that reminder. Otherwise, I would have missed it. So, are there any more questions, comments, discussion points before I head off? Just a reminder that if you want to send in a question for next week's show, don't just wait till Tuesday. You can send them in at any time. DM at John O'Bullard on Twitter, or just send me a tweet on there. They will be most welcome, and I will save them for next week's show. Doesn't look like anything else is going to come through. So all that remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, for joining in, for coming in on the comments. It's always a pleasure to have your company every week. Without you, there's no show. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for sending the questions through. Don't forget, you can listen to this again as audio only. Should be on all good podcast providers. If you search for British Hockey Chat with John O'Bullard, you will find it, and I will put a link in my Twitter, and I'll put a link in the description once it is uploaded. But for now, thanks so much. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy wherever you're watching hockey this weekend. And I will speak to you again next week. See you, everyone. Take care.